Okay. So, good afternoon and good morning to everyone on here. So, I'm really excited to introduce today's speaker, who is Nicole Smith. Nicole is it newly or not so newly appointed executive director of Alive, which is the Association of Leaders in Volunteer Engagement in the United States of America. So, it's a brilliant network that supports and connects volunteer managers across the country. Um, I actually first connected with Nicole after admiring her work from afar. And we booked in a 30-minute chat, which turned into a 90-minute because the conversation just kept flowing. And I absolutely love her energy and insight and passion for volunteer engagement. And so I'm really excited that she's joining us today. So welcome, Nicole. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the welcome. I'm very, very excited to be here. Um, so we're gonna go ahead and just dive right in. When Mishka and I were talking about like the possibility of me presenting, y'all can still see my screen, right? Because the light went off, so I'm not sure. Okay. Um, we were talking about like the topic that comes up for everybody pretty much is recruitment, right? And because everybody is always looking to recruit and bring in new volunteers. It's just a conversation that happens all the time. And so I shared with her my perception on recruitment and things that I've learned and stepping into this we're going to say newish, newly appointed role because after a year, I can't say new anymore, but I haven't hit the year yet. So I'm still claiming new. Um, Stepping into this new role and understanding as we ourselves were looking to recruit and bring volunteers in, I feel like we often look at volunteer recruitment backwards. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. That's why it's ready, set, not yet, laying the groundwork before you recruit volunteers. Okay. There we go. Okay. I don't know how many of you all have heard of this report. It's the 2025 Volunteer Management Progress Report. Toby Johnson does it with Volunteer Pro. Now, basically, this is a report that she has done over, I think, the last 10 years, getting input from leaders of volunteers. Now, countries represented, UK is there. We need to get those respondent numbers up to get your voice heard just a little bit more. Okay. So, but that's not why I put this. That's not why I put this here. I was happy that it was there and to see that you all were one of the countries that were participating. Um, but the whole point of it was that lack of time was mentioned as a top challenge in the report of everything that was coming back as far as like what are the things that are most difficult for a volunteer engagement leader. Lack of time was mentioned as a top challenge, second only to volunteer recruitment. So it's something that is not only in your country, it's a industry wide, sector wide challenge that we all have. It doesn't matter where you are, it's that same challenge. So, like I said, I wanted to just try to approach it a little bit differently because this is how I feel most people approach recruitment. Meaning they go out, they get volunteers, but their systems and the structure, their infrastructure is not in place. So literally, it's like pouring water into a bucket with holes in it. You get all of these people in, and before they even get to their first shift, because the onboarding process has some hiccups, they don't ever make it to their first shift, or they get in and they're unhappy because whatever, or they get in, and we're going to talk about a lot of what those things are. But the whole point of this is really for us to look at it a little bit backwards. Before the next time you go out to recruit any more volunteers, have we plugged up the holes in our bucket so that when we are recruiting, that our retention goes up? This is like a whole new meaning to water retention, right? But the whole point is that our retention numbers go up because we've plugged up the holes. So let's take a look at it. So let's identify the holes in your bucket. What you don't know may be holding back your recruitment efforts. And I just like this little thing here. I was today years old when I realized that the numbers on a toaster are for minutes and not levels of toastiness. That it should not have been as mind-blowing as it was, but it was a game changer, right? So, but if that could happen for me with toast, what are we doing about recruitment that we are not thinking about? So we're going to talk about 5 steps. Um, how ready is your program ready to receive volunteers before you ever go out to recruit for them? Number 1, we're going to talk about identifying the gaps in your program with a program assessment. Number 2, do you have your policies, procedures in place, talking about like the volunteer handbook or whatever? Disciplinary action is such a strong word. But I mean, just things that like the if then, if somebody continues to show up late, what is the process on how you address that? And if you don't have one, let's think about what that is, because that is a part of retention. And that is also a part of the one bad apple spoils the bunch. If you allow behavior for somebody and they get away with something, other volunteers are going to see that it's okay, and it causes a big, tremendous issue that you didn't necessarily have to have if you didn't have policies and things in place to help manage it. Train the staff who will be working with your volunteers. Set the environment up for success and test your onboarding process. Then make the invite. So before you ever think about volunteering, recruiting for volunteers, these things you should have taken thought and taken stock in. So programmatic self-assessment tools. So I was like, hey, how do you identify the gaps in your program? So Alive actually has standards, like organizational standards, and the CVA has a self-assessment tool. I say take either one of these and just do because when was the last time you really looked at your program overall and have identified the gaps in it? Now, understanding that you might find gaps, they don't all have to be plugged up at once, because even if all the holes in your bucket are not leaking, it's better to have only one leaking water than 10, right? Because we can't fix all of these all at the same time overnight. It's just not possible. However, it's one thing to not be able to fix it all at once, but you know what it is. It's a whole nother thing to be pouring water into a bucket and you don't know where the leak is coming from, because it gives you at least the opportunity to plug things up or make some adjustments or request help for it. So these are really great because it helps you to understand the strengths of your program and the places where you might need assistance, or, it could be, is it a tiny hole so we can let it leak, or is this a big gaping hole and we need to focus on it? So that's the whole point of of assessing your program. So when I talk about policies and procedures, I'm sure I am speaking to the choir, and I'm sure most of you all already have all of this, right? So in your volunteer handbook, does it talk about what orientation looks like? Not necessarily is all this in your handbook, but what does it look like in real life? So what does your orientation look like? What does your scheduling look like? How are you tracking hours? This is almost like like, what is the communication tree? Like, who communicates with whom when? I read a book the other day, and I don't know, have you all heard of it was back in the day, so I'm like showing my age, but the movie Ghostbusters? Yes, maybe. If not, I'll have to like send a link to help y'all out. But there's this song and it goes like, who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters. And like these people you would call in if you're having like challenges with ghosts in your house. The whole point is, the book was like, have a Ghostbusters list. Like, it's literally like, who are you going to call? So if it's something that affects like the marketing department, who is your contact in marketing? If it's something that a volunteer is out on an event and something happens, who are they going to call? It's like, who are they going to call? Who are they going to call? What is that communication tree? Not only for your volunteers, but also you as you are leading the volunteer engagement strategy in your organization. If you need to get something on the event calendar, if you need to get the orientation on the event calendar at a certain time, do you know who that person, who to call? Knocking those things out, because that all plays into how everything goes. What is the recognition process, or the or the recognition program or what that looks like. Grievance, I think that's a little bit better than the disciplinary action. But like, is there a grievance policy or a grievance something in place that if a volunteer does have an issue, they know, according to the communication tree and the Ghostbuster list, they know who they can go to have the conversation to get it solved. Because what happens is often volunteers are not, or they feel as though that they are not being heard. So the first, after like 2 or 3 times and they're not heard, they email the CEO. And oftentimes the CEO, the only time they hear from volunteers is when they're getting these, how do they call them? Like uh manifesto emails, right? So what is the process that you have in place to help alleviate that? I'm not going to say that no volunteer is ever just not going to go straight to the CEO. But number one, if your CEO is involved with a lot of the things that are happening at your volunteer program, they're going to have a better sense so that when this random email comes in, they're going to be more biased towards you and the program because you know what the program is really about, as opposed to the first time they're hearing it from the opinion of somebody who decided to reach out to them. Do you have policies and procedures put in place for accountability? For media representation, social media, do you have these things set up? Have you thought about them? Again, some of these things could be little leaks. Some of these things could be big gaping holes in your bucket. But if you haven't even thought about it, it's something that I want to challenge you to do. The second is staff training, right? Prepare your staff to work with your volunteers. And I know many people might have said, well, I've done that before. I've tried and it just doesn't work and nobody wants to listen. Have those conversations. Try to develop relationships with your coworkers, with people who are requesting or would like to use a volunteer. Really try to understand their need and understand that you are really here to help them. And it's not just about you and your program, but it's about what is going to make the entire organization great. And we are here to support you and to support each other. One of the things that really worked in a couple of organizations that I was in was talk to your HR people, become really great friends with HR, and try to make it become a part of the new hire onboarding process. In some cases, we just ask for 30 minutes to say, this is our volunteer program. These how our volunteers operate within the organization. This is the impact that they bring, and they have an opportunity to support you in whatever it is that you're also doing for the organization. But from the onset, from day one, when they start, or whatever that first week is, they understand not only that volunteers exist, the importance of the volunteer, and how their interaction with volunteers is crucial to your volunteer retention. Because we all know we will go through the orientation, we will love on the volunteers, hug on the volunteers, give them everything they need. And their first day they go to a shift, they have one bad interaction with the staff person and they don't come back. So, but and a lot of times the staff person isn't even aware. The staff person like walked by a volunteer because they're, busy doing their job or whatever it is. And now you have a volunteer that doesn't come back. But at least putting that on their radar, they can be aware, because everybody, and I know on this call, I know everybody knows on this call that volunteer recruitment and retention is not only the job of the volunteer engagement leader, it is the job of the entire organization. But guess what? Often the entire organization is not aware. So we have a saying in my house, it's no expectation without communication. How can we expect people to know that they could be a part of the process to help retain or lose volunteers if we've never had a conversation with them and they don't know, especially if they're not ever used to working with volunteers and they've never had that interaction before. Sometimes they just don't know. So it is our job to make sure that they are aware of it, because then at that point, also, if they're aware of it, now they can be held accountable. If they've never known, they have plausible deniability and can't get away with it. So let's not do that, okay? Let's make everybody accountable, because when we work together as departments, as an organization, trying to maximize the impact on our community, it works for all of us together. It's not a pointing fingers and us them. It's a we. It's an Ubuntu situation. If we are not working to help each other out, we all fail. Either we all rise or we all fail, right? So it's again, it's not that, well, I told you, so now you're accountable. It's like, how can we work together? Because if volunteers show up and do what they're supposed to do, that's also going to alleviate your job or make your job easier in whatever it is that you're trying to do. So as we look at it as a community-centered thing, that's also another reason to help communicate that out. Provide a one-sheeter. If somebody doesn't work with volunteers often and maybe maybe you can't get into the onboarding. Well, if somebody requests a volunteer, here's a quick one-sheeter. Things to do, things not to do. Number one, say hello to the volunteer and look them in the eye while you do it. You would think sometimes it doesn't have to be told, but it's better to be on the safe side than not, right? So make it part of a requirement. If you are going to request a volunteer and have the help, there is this one-sheeter. Are there any questions on there that you're not clear about? Make sure that you know. So at the very least, you know what you set the expectations, right? Set the expectations. You could also create a short training video. So if somebody doesn't want to have the one-sheeter, or maybe you can do both because people learn differently. But whatever it is, don't let the excuse of, oh, well, I can't train the staff, or they won't let me train the staff. Work within what work within the control that you have. And if somebody is coming to request a volunteer, make it a part of the requirement. That cool. Otherwise, well, and this is like easier said and just like sharper said, but well, great. If you don't want to take the time to review the one-sheeter or the video, then I can't let you not use a volunteer, but I cannot be sure, like for the success of everybody involved. If you don't want to take the time to do the training, then I don't want to put a volunteer in a precarious situation or you in a precarious situation because it's not going to set up the organization for success. Figure out how to word it, but let them know that it is a part, is a prerequisite of being able to engage with a volunteer. They have to have something. They have to have an understanding. Environmental preparedness, regardless if you're on site or off site, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. If somebody is helping like in an admin type scenario, like I use office assistants because it's an easy one to think about, but computers, logins, cheat sheets, who to call, that whole Ghostbusters. I'm telling you, that Ghostbuster thing changed my life in the book that I was reading. So, but I have seen so many times, oh, can I have a volunteer come in and help? And then the volunteer gets there. They're there for an entire shift and they didn't get to do anything because the computer was old. By the time it finally did turn on, they didn't have the proper login. And then it was like, oh, it was such a waste of time. Was it? Was So before, have that conversation. Back to talking to staff training. Part of that is if you're going to request a volunteer, these are the things that have to be in place so that when a volunteer comes in, they're set up for success to be able to help. Do you have the proper logins? Do they have the proper logins? If it's something that's offsite, what is the event for? Where are they supposed to meet? What are they supposed to wear? All of those things, and making sure all of that is set up. Now, sometimes that could be like for a one-off event, but overall with the program, whatever it is that your program, your strategy entails, from your standpoint, are you prepared to give them an environment to set them up for success, regardless if it's in person or if it's virtually? If you have somebody helping you virtually, again, do they have access? Is there a particular email they're supposed to have? And even if you're in a place where you're like, well, they can't have an organizational email, that's cool. Work all that out before. Okay, in order to do this, you have to have a Gmail. So to volunteer, just maybe create a Gmail email, blah, blah, blah. Whatever those things are, they should have been thought through ahead of time. And I know a lot of organizations are in the, well, we're just gonna um, build it while we're flying. That's great for us as we're building out our stuff. That's not great for the volunteers. You have to take the time out. You have to carve the time out. And I say carve because just like if you are, carving I love you into the tree, you have to really dig into it, right? And sometimes you have to protect that time, create the time, block it out on your calendar. Nothing can get booked, nothing can get scheduled. Go somewhere where you're not going to be bothered in another room. Turn off all, close all your emails. I know this is like a dream world, but still, we can dream and plan out what is that going to look like as it pertains to the volunteers. Make it be thought through. Because as much as you think it through, when you actually put it into practice, something isn't always gonna go 100%. So you build in room to deal with the challenges that the unseen and hidden challenges, as opposed to the challenges that you could have prevented. I'm a big believer in even doing like pilot program type things. But I can't tell you the number of things that we have done, and even we've tested it. We've used advisory teams to like test this and does this work, and then you roll it out, and still different situations come up. But now you're dealing with those. You're not dealing with the basics that could have been handled ahead of time with just some time carved out to think things through all the way through. Then test your onboarding process. Number one, test it yourself. When was the last time you yourself went through your volunteer onboarding process? Just a thought. Also, have like a private shopper. I personally would get family and friends to go through the volunteer onboarding process and see what their experience is like, especially if there are other people involved in the process that are not you. What was their response time? Did they get a response? If they did, was it polite? Did links work? How often before you go out to recruit new volunteers, have you tested what your onboarding process looks like? Is it working? Do all the links work? Is there more than 5 steps to get from orientation to their first shift? Now, this is just a generalization, a guide. This is not going to work for every situation, okay? But the last organization I was with, I have to remember and think, but it was something like from the time somebody clicked on volunteer with the organization to the time they finally made it to their first shift, it was like something like 25 or 26 different steps. It was click here, go back to that page, click here, watch this, email this. It was just bananas. I was surprised anybody made it through. And we took it from, I think, 25 to 15 or 10 or 15 steps, something like that. But we cut out all the noise. We cut out all the noise. Ideally, from the time somebody finds volunteer, how many steps does it take to get to their first shift? How effortless are we making it? Now, it shouldn't be completely painless because I believe, um, you know, a little friction is a good thing, right? You can't drive a car without friction. You got to have a little something to hold, right? Because if it's completely effortless, then you might get a whole bunch of people who really aren't that invested because it was just so easy to get through and the time wasn't invested. So easy in, easy out. But also that doesn't mean make them jump through 600 hoops either, right? So if there's some things that it might take a little bit of time, that's okay, because that could be what is that is what's sifting out those who maybe only had a little bit of interest or kind of interest, and those people who are passionate. Because people who are passionate will keep coming back and will keep trying because they believe in the cause. But just don't wear them down, right? So, like I said, 5 steps is just it's a suggestion, it's a guide, but can you do it? And what parts of those are automated and what parts of those create opportunity for you to connect with the volunteer? I am a big believer in automating everything that you possibly can to create room for connection. So if you can automate most of it, That means now I have, and again, I dream big, people, I dream big. Now I have an hour to spend on the phone with a volunteer because all the automation has taken care of. Whereas if the automation isn't taken care of, I have 10 minutes to talk to a volunteer, right? Within, let's say the whole process is an hour and a half. If I can get the automation to take care, let's be a little bit more realistic, right? If I can get the automation to take care of what would normally take an hour, so now that's an hour and I have 30 minutes to talk to that volunteer, where opposed to it was taking me maybe an hour and 15 minutes, and now I only have 10 minutes to talk to the volunteer. Like automation is your friend. Use it to your advantage. The stuff, those rudimentary, those things that have to be done over and over, let automation handle that so that it creates room for you to be able to build relationship and talk to the volunteer either during the orientation or whatever it is. But all of that to say was, when is the last time that you yourself went through your onboarding? If you're not going through it at least once a year and reviewing it annually, you could be losing volunteers to the hold. Number one, technology is changing faster than we can blink. Are there things that you could implement to help make it go a little bit better? And if it's working, great. But guess what? Now you know 100% that it's working because you tested it yourself and you went through. And if you don't have time to test it yourself, have onboarding volunteers go through the process and tell them, what has changed. Because sometimes programmatic offerings change, sometimes processes change, and it forgets to get updated in the onboarding. So now people are signing up to volunteer for a program that doesn't even exist anymore because we forgot to take it off of the sign up. And people are like, well, dang, if I'm starting off like this, what's the rest of it look like? Just something to think about. Okay. After you've considered all of those things, that is when you start thinking about making the invitation. And this presentation is not really a recruitment thing. There are a million webinars and blogs and many people talking on recruitment in every aspect. So I'm going to let you all find those. Like, you don't need to hear another recruitment message from me. I'm just going to talk about a couple of things to consider and remember when you are making the invitation. But again, there's several hundred. I mean, because everybody's asking for recruitment, so there's a lot of recruitment webinars, but this is not what I wanted this to be about. What is that pre-thought or pre-work that you were doing before ever going out to bring people into your organization? Because it is so much more difficult to get a volunteer to come back who has had a bad experience than it is to go out and get new volunteers. And going out to get new volunteers is not easy. But going out and getting volunteers who come through your process and have a bad experience, getting them back is practically impossible. And it's 10 times harder than it is to go out. So why do all of that work, the orientation, the getting everything set up, you're doing all of these things and not paying attention to the details and not having the right conversations to plug up the holes? Why go through all of that for them to just come in and walk right back out? Some of them don't even make it to their first shift. Some of them, they don't make it past the first 3 months. Does your onboarding account for those things? Are there check-ins within? Because I think it's something along the lines of, there's stats out there somewhere. Sorry, I'm just thinking about this off the top of my head, so I don't have them like with me. But I can just say anecdotally, like at one of the other organizations I was in, usually our volunteers, if we could get them past the 6-month mark, they typically would stay. But we had a lot of drop off within those first 3 months. So we changed our onboarding to include volunteer to volunteer check-ins. Are you able to navigate the system? Were you able to get your login? And instead of just all of a sudden they were ghosting us, no pun intended, and we haven't heard from them anymore, right? So what are those things that you can be thinking about so that when you do put in all of that work, now, not to say that some people still are not going to come back, that's okay, but we can flip the switch to where maybe it's 20% are not coming back and not something a larger number than that. So as you think about that, and you're thinking about making the invitation, think about some things such as, which most of you should already know, probably already know, that current volunteers will be your best recruiters. If you take care of them, they will do the recruitment for you. Do they feel recognized? Do they feel appreciated? Do they feel like they are making impact? Before extending the invite to bring more people in, have you taken the temperature of your current volunteers? Are they doing as much as they can? And I know, well, a lot of people will say, um, we don't want to continue to ask the same volunteers to do the same things because they just raise their hand to do everything, right? Because I will say, ask your current volunteers, like ask your current volunteer if there's a need that you've assessed and you figure out what this need is, you have your role description, you know exactly what it is, ask your current volunteers first. And that's when people are like, oh, but we always ask them. Right. I'm not talking about the current volunteers that always raise their hand to do everything. I'm talking about the current volunteers who maybe you haven't seen in a couple of months. Like, hey, we have this special project. Would you be, and doing that personal ask. And again, if you don't have the time to do it, have a team of volunteers who are able to do it for you. Asking the people who are not always raising their hand, but looking at those who you haven't heard from, who you think might be a do great. There is rarely, I had to do some serious thinking of a time that I have ever asked somebody to do something specific and be like, hey, can you help me with this? And they were just like, nah, I'm good. I don't think that's ever happened to me. I got used to, and it's fascinating because we'll be in a committee meeting and the ask will go out, but it's kind of that same thing with marketing. When you ask everybody, you ask nobody because everybody else thinks that you're talking to them. So we'll be in a meeting and I'll be like, so and so, do you want to do this? Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. And I'm like, but we just sat out. There's something about that personal ask that makes people feel like they can, like you trust them. It gives them ownership. There's something about it. So as you're thinking about before you go out to look for what you need, has everybody in your current group of volunteers had the opportunity to take it on? Like it's like that first right of refusal that they get the first ask. It's kind of like we've had cell like a commercial for cell cell phone company, and it'll be like it'll have a customer that's been with the company for like 5 years, and then a new customer comes in, and the new customer gets like practically like a new house. They're like, oh, you get this and you get this and you get this and you get this, and the person that's been there for a while, they're like, what about me? They're like, yeah, you get to just keep your service. And it's like, what? Like, so it's I also was a Girl Scout, so it's that whole phrase of like uh keep is it make new friends but keep the old. One is silver, the other gold. So how are you continuing to show the appreciation to the current volunteers that you have and not alienating them when you're going out to look for more people so that they don't feel like chopped liver? Like almost like I said, and by giving them the first right of refusal, it's another way of building trust. I asked you first, great. If you're not cool, then we're gonna bring in other people as best as you can, right? It's not always gonna work in every situation, but that perception of it, like what is it, and have you ever thought about doing that? Let the volunteers help with recruitment. Do you have anything that says, hey, we're having a new recruitment that's coming up, and tell them to tell people. We used to give people recruitment cards. And and volunteer cards. They were like little business cards, and they could keep them in their pocket. So if they were out and they went to the art museum or they went shopping or whatever, and they were talking about volunteering, they could whip their card out of their wallet and be like, here, you should think about volunteering. And they were able to market in ways to people that we would have never thought of because it's relational. So if they were talking to people at the grocery store, that's somebody I would have never been able to reach. But that volunteer was, and she had the information in her hand to be able to give. So are you thinking about letting them not only tell everybody about the experience that they have, but are you giving them the tools to be able to recruit on your behalf? Are you equipping them? Um, Work with your marketing communications team to get the word out about the volunteer orientation that's coming out. Newsletters, social media, they can work wonders. Become good friends with your marketing people. Let them there, especially if you are sharing stories of impact and the impact that they are making. um Social media and marketing teams love that type of content to be able to bring people into the organization in one way or the other. Lead with your uniqueness. I'm going to show you about that in just a second. um Show how the volunteers are making impact, and avoid the phrase "we need you." That is probably one of my greatest pet peeves, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. Okay, so lead with your uniqueness. I didn't think about this till this morning, so I wanted to throw it in here. If I thought about it, oh, and I spelled uniqueness wrong, sorry. And then maybe if you didn't notice it, then I just pointed it out, so now it's even more awkward. Sorry. So had I thought about it, I would have talked to Mushka and asked her like, what type of like burger restaurants do you all have over there? But over here in the US, we have a gazillion burger restaurants, which says way too much, right? But all of these different companies make burgers. They all make burgers. But people choose to go to each one for a different reason, which is the only reason why they can exist. So don't be afraid that if you are in healthcare or you work with children and there's like 7 other nonprofits that work with children, don't lead with the familiarity, lead with the uniqueness, right? So on here, uh Burger King is known because they grill their burgers. Whataburger, their burgers are, oh, Mushka, when you go, they're literally the size of Texas. Literally, they're like disgustingly huge. Um, In-N-Out Burger, their mission, some people go to them because of the mission behind the organization. There's just people choose for different reasons. And the whole point is if all of these, literally, if all of these burger joints were on a street and you had to go, you're going to choose one for a reason because of the one that you identify with. So think of that with your organization and lead with that in your recruitment. Don't worry about the fact that there's 7 other children's nonprofit. Maybe you're the only one that works with them one-on-one. Maybe you're the only one that works with them with ages from such and such to such and such. Maybe you're the only one that does this with them with their after school program. Find out what your unique proposition is and use that to lead with your recruitment efforts. And then are you communicating the impact, right? So clients served, lives changed, health improved, hours donated, in-kind donation amount, whatever it is, are you telling those stories? And it's the difference between, our volunteers donated 3,000 hours as opposed to because of you can even put it together. Our volunteers donated 3,000 hours, and because they did, 70,000 children had the opportunity to experience a live stage show for the first time in their lives, and they learned about self-esteem. And when they came out, they were giving us high fives and said that they couldn't wait, and that they couldn't wait to come back. And then to hear the stories of that same child who comes back, who says, my first show was here, and now I'm graduating from high school on the same stage. There was like those are the thing. How are you telling the story? Are you telling this story that is really sharing the impact? Because numbers don't tell everything. Numbers tell a lot, but they don't tell everything. So I know, and So I'm a big believer in sharing both. I know a lot of people are like, well, don't just share the numbers, but I don't feel like you can't share the numbers without the story. You just can't. The stories help to solidify and the stories help to solidify and validate. The numbers help to solidify and validate the stories that are being shared, right? So even if you only share it that one time, and it's like, but because like I said just a second ago, but because our volunteers did this, our volunteers donated, 300 hours, that was able to happen 5 times over for 70,000 kids. And the smiles on their faces tell the story, right? Like that is the impact to communicate because people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. I recently had an opportunity to volunteer with FIFA World Cup. Oh, congratulations to any Chelsea fans out there. And if you're not Chelsea fans, I'm also sorry. But I had an opportunity to be a part of that whole thing. And I had to laugh at myself because the finals were coming. And I put my volunteer shirt on, I put my credential. I'm sitting at home watching the TV, but I'm still feeling a part of it because I was like, look, babe, look, I have the same credential they have on TV. And it was being able to be a part of something bigger. I wasn't there at the final, but I was a part of the other finals. I mean, of the other games that led up to the final. So I still felt a part of that, I was connected to a part of that. That's that impact. The energy of the crowd, the people's faces, the energy of all of that that happened. Um, are you communicating that impact? Okay. And then one of the last things is language matters. And like I said earlier, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people say we need volunteers. Think about that. Um, think about the language being more inspirational. Use a verb with it, right? Because when you say we need volunteers, and especially at every orientation, you're like, we need volunteers. It starts to kind of think like, why are they always asking for volunteers? Are people not coming back? Are they not being treated right? Why aren't volunteers sticking around if every 3 months you're saying we need volunteers? But if you're inviting them, join us in the mission to make a child's life more meaningful. Join us in the mission to whatever that is. Invite them in to make impact as opposed to being like, we need help, because it just sounds like it's a sinking ship every 30 minutes. Every 30 minutes, every like 30, however often your orientations are. Change it from we need you to join us to help make greater impact. And then the volunteer with us, that's another one where um it doesn't tie into the uniqueness of your organization. There's a difference between volunteer with us or come deliver food with us. Use your skills to drive impact this way. Make it personal for people to connect to. Because there's like, I don't know, 1.5 million, I think, nonprofits, and that's just in the US. So that's not even like worldwide. It's a ridiculous amount of number. And they're all saying volunteer with us. It's crowded. But if I say, come stand pitch side with us and help, usher in the next Club World Cup winners, oh, you got me. Bam. Now you've just, you've taken to me to a whole nother level. You've caught my attention because now I know what you need. So just kind of be thinking about what is that, and that's what I mean by lean with your uniqueness, and what is that for you. The last two things is we can't do this without you. Try to stay away from that phrase. What it unintentionally does is two different things, either one or both. It empowers volunteers to overstep boundaries, possibly even often. And how do I know? Because it's happened to me. People will tell you about yourself and how to do your job. And then, well, you yourself even said that you can't do this without me. Okay. The other thing is sometimes it can put undue burden on a volunteer. Well, but if I don't show up, they're not going to be able to get it done. And then they do more and they don't say no and they possibly burn out. So instead of we can't do this without you, Your help greatly extends our reach and our impact. Thank you for that. We are grateful. It helps to expand and it helps us to get things done. But even if it's true and you can't do it don't put that pressure and burden on them, because especially if it's the person who raises their hand all the time, they're going to try to raise their hand to do it again. Okay. And then the last thing is, we're not saying it's a volunteer job, but it's a volunteer opportunity. Because again, especially if you say that it's a volunteer job, the first thing people will do, especially when they are unhappy, oh, if it's a job, am I not getting paid for this? This is not my job. So you're right. It's an opportunity. It's a role to help us. So I ask you, what does your recruitment look like? And ideally, when you're pouring water, your bucket isn't leaking holes. And this is the definition of the retention that you want. So I know we're going out into breakout sessions. We have I know it's 10 minutes. We're pushing it, but we still have a little bit of time.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Really, really appreciate it. And I know everyone loves the breakout sessions so they can network with other people. Really interesting. I'm actually going to rewatch this because there were so many points I need to. But first of all, thanks for putting Ghostbusters in my head now. Like I got that. Who are you gonna call? I'm gonna.
Yes, Busters!
I'm gonna have a burger tonight because of you, because all those I was just like craving a burger now. Really appreciate it. You had so many good points. The private shopping thing, I'm always encouraging people to do that. I think that's so important. Automate, like work smarter, not harder. Like just because your job isn't an administrator, your job is a volunteer manager to create the program, connect with your volunteers. Why are you spending 30 minutes on each application for references when you have automated reference collection tools? So really, really appreciate it. We are going to do breakout rooms. We're only going to probably going to put like 6 minutes. And then we're going to come back for closing, if that's okay, Nicole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.